Coming from being born in Michigan in 1956 and eventually moving to Ohio at 5 years old, Romel Broom committed numerous violent crimes as a juvenile, for which he was repeatedly committed to the Ohio Youth Authority. On October 25, 1974, Broom and another person entered a man's car, robbed him at gunpoint, and forced him out. On January 11, 1975, at 20 years old, he raped a 12-year-old girl who was babysitting his niece. On March 15, 1975, he committed another armed robbery with an accomplice. Broom later pleaded guilty to grape, aggravated robbery, and was sentenced to 7 to 25 years in prison. His friend that he committed the crimes with was acquitted, and Broom was eventually released from prison after serving 8.5 years, 4 months later after his release. On September 18, 1984, at 29 years old, Broom attempted to abduct 12-year-old Vanita McKinney, but was interrupted by 2 neighbors who saw her being abducted. They intervened and saved her. On September 21, 1984, Broom abducted and raped 14-year-old Trina Middleton as she was walking home with 2 of her friends from a football game in East Cleveland, Ohio, and he would eventually stab her to death 6 times. A couple of months later, on December 6, 1984, Broom attempted to abduct 11-year-old Melinda Grissom. After Broom threw Grissom into his car, her mother interrupted them and held on to the car while screaming for help. The icy road made it harder for Broom to drive off, allowing Grissom's mother to hang on. Eventually, Melinda was able to escape. However, 2 young men were able to write down the license plate number of the car. Broom was arrested later that day. He was charged with numerous crimes, including murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of attempted kidnapping, 2 counts of grape, and 2 counts of robbery. Broom offered to plead guilty in exchange for a sentence of 30 years to life, and at his sentencing in 1985, his lawyer stated that his childhood was rough. He witnessed his sister being stabbed to death, and he would eventually drop out of school in 10th grade and was shaped by a broken family in which he saw his mother beaten by his father, and Broom often had to care for his siblings on his own at a very young age. Broom's mother pleaded with the trial court to spare his life, but his offer was rejected. He was found guilty and sentenced to death, with his execution date being set for September 15, 2009. Broom would maintain his innocence even though he pleaded guilty to his crimes. He would request the court to request the victim's harm to be tested for hardcore drugs that altered their memory that would help prove his innocence. And in 2003, Romel Broom performed DNA testing in an effort to prove his innocence in the 1984 abduction and murder of 14-year-old Trina Middleton. The test results did not exonerate him. A clemency hearing concluded that the DNA report does not indicate an exact match, but because of his guilty plea, his is still in doubt the suspect. 14 days before his execution date on September 1, 2009, his file for clemency avoiding the death penalty was denied, and on September 15th, on his execution date, every death row prisoner before their execution is allowed to request any last meal of their choice, but Romel did not request a special last meal. Instead, he was served the standard prison dinner of chicken stir-fry, rice, bread, pears, and juice. When he was in the execution chamber and situated in the chair, and when the officer tried to use the potassium chloride injection, which causes cardiac arrest by stopping the heart, they could not find a suitable vein to poke him. The execution team struggled for over 2 hours to find a suitable vein to administer the lethal injection drugs. They stuck him with needles in 18 different places in his arms and legs, striking bone in one case, but were unable to find a vein despite Mr. Broom's efforts to help them. The team accessed a vein, but it collapsed when they tried to inject saline, bringing Mr. Broom to tears. He turned onto his back, covered his face with both hands, and started crying. Prison staff became frustrated, and the governor granted a 1-week reprieve to give Ohio officials time to figure out how to kill Mr. Broom. His execution date was eventually pushed back to June of 2020. Romel would eventually write a book in 2012 and release it on Amazon, where he would describe his traumatizing experience. And he would also write a poem labeled "Until I Die," where he would say, "The stress was so bad I attempted to help them end my life. I was ready to die because of the trauma and pain, knowing that these people were not going to stop until I die. I was pricked more than 18 times until I die. The pricks were painful, but it became worse when they could not find a vein until I die. They would stay inside my vein in my arm in the same hole, poking around for blood, never pulling the needle out until I die. It was terrifying being around people who were just trying to kill me. They were acting as if nothing had happened, and I was feeling as if I had to act the same way until I die, afraid that they were going to do something to cause my death until I die." I had to hold my emotions in because I would have been out of control, and I did not want to give them reason to put their hands on me until I die. Hold everything that I was feeling inside. To this day, I can't understand the reason for what happened to me. Do I have a life until I die? Things are very difficult. I have no peace within, no truth from the people around me. I must get away until I die. When traveling to the heart of darkness, terror is not an emotion. It's a destination, until we die. Because of the prison running out of lethal injection medication, the execution date was eventually pushed back to March 2022. But on December 20th, 2020, Broome would eventually die of COVID-19 at the age of 64. As of today, the Ohio Department of Corrections has put its executions on hold and is considering adopting the Alabama Department of Corrections' way of killing their death row inmates by using nitrogen hypoxia for an execution. Nitrogen hypoxia induces death by replacing oxygen with nitrogen, leading to rapid unconsciousness and death. As of January 1st, 2025, there are approximately 2,092 individuals on death row in the United States, with 2,046 of them being men.
Life back on track. Remember my first whip Cadillac. Been going on since I ain't going back. These niggas can't wait to put a knife in your back.